Well, anyway, college is a whole new ballgame. People judge you differently than they did in high school. Where are they? I think they're talking about us. No way.
Come on, Lewis, let's go.
In the 1984 film Revenge of the Nerds, the stereotype of the nerd eventually emerged as the hero, possibly inspiring nerd culture as we know it today. The term nerd was initially a pejorative, but beginning in the late 90s, the interests of nerds and nerds themselves became more popular, in large part because of the rise of personal computers. Silicon Valley now wields an incredible amount of influence over both our work and personal lives. Data, once relegated to the realm of men with pocket protectors, became a critical part of business, media, and marketing. Today, data is now considered the most valuable resource in the world. But ensuring the integrity of data is in the hands of business intelligence professionals like Jaclyn Herr. Jaclyn leads business intelligence and customer experience at T-Turtle, maker of apparel, toys, and games featuring both in-house designs and licensed characters from Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars. Yeah, nerd culture stuff. This week, we discuss the Zendesk support platform, why customer data is important to businesses, how data-driven stories affect change, dealing with bad data, and the biggest driver of customer expectations today. Let's get to it.
Welcome to Next in Queue, the podcast for contact center and customer experience professionals. Next in Queue is brought to you by Happy 2 Vision. Eliminate blind spots and see right through every conversation with Happy 2 Vision. Learn more at happitu.com. Now, here's your host, Rob Dwyer.
Thanks for joining another episode of Next in Queue. Today, I'm joined by Jaclyn Herr. Jaclyn, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
You are joining from really far away. You're also in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, maybe not that far away. Today, we are going to talk about getting some good data. That's what we're going to talk about. But before we do that, let's learn a little bit about you. Tell us kind of what your personal journey has been and how you ended up where you are today and what you do there.
Yeah. So it's been kind of a weird journey, but I'll go back to college. We'll start there. So I studied ancient Greek and Latin in undergrad. I was a humanities major. And
that seems to fit right in with being
exactly
business intelligence data person.
Yep. So I was really into languages, and I got to postgrad. I was in a PhD program in Boston, and I realized that I approached language from a very analytical standpoint. I was really interested in like the complexity of the grammar, fixating on a single word and how it would be used throughout a text in different ways. And while most people in the humanities approach problems as like, well, I'm going to approach this from this theme, or this is my favorite author. I'm going to take a feminist approach to this and that. I was like, I'm going to look at this grammatical structure through this entire play and see how using this structure lends meaning to a sentence.
Wow.
I was really, really detail oriented. And people thought I was absolutely just like so boring. And then I would pick apart everything that my cohort did. You know, I'm going to do this and that. And I'm like, well, what about line 57? Where so-and-so says blah, blah, blah. You know, I was just a huge pain in the ass, but I realized that, no one was ever going to be interested in anything I ever wrote. I honestly just didn't jive great with academia. I felt like the way I approached problems was not really fitting the program. And I probably should have been like a linguistics person or something like that. But I decided after a year in that PhD program that it wasn't for me. And I left, and had been planning to be a teacher, a professor for 10 years probably. I knew when I was in high school that I wanted to be a teacher. And so it was a pretty jarring thing to walk away from that path. But I was pretty confident for whatever reason that I would just be fine. And I knew, okay, I have a humanities degree. That means I can be an admin somewhere. I can write, I can read, I can communicate well. I'm just going to go out and get a job as an admin somewhere and I will figure it out. And they'll see how smart I am and I will work my way up. And I just had the confidence that that would be how it worked out. And thankfully that was how it worked out. So I joined a startup in Boston called Kairos. They were a healthcare IT SaaS company. When I joined, there were around 30 people and only had one customer. So I got in really early. And I joined as an administrative assistant. I was basically the receptionist. And then within about 6 months, I got promoted into like an HR position, doing a lot of onboarding and hiring and recruiting. And then about a year later, we had a few more customers and they decided that we needed a dedicated customer support function. And I was really interested in learning our products a lot better. And thankfully at this company, we had Friday all hands where the engineering teams, the customer facing teams, like would present on what product improvements we were working on and all this other stuff. And I really paid attention. And so I actually knew our products fairly well, despite having never logged into one, because I paid attention in those meetings. And so when I transitioned over into this support function, I remember having, the product manager sit me down and do this training, and they had built out this little quiz that they gave new people on their team after their first week of onboarding to see how well they knew the products. And I aced it, having just watched these Friday demos. So I'm a total sponge for information. I have a weirdly technical brain, despite being a humanities person. So I really absorbed a lot of that software skills, because it was a new support function. We had no tooling. We had to make API calls just to provision a new user. So I had to pick up all kinds of random skills just on the fly. Sat at engineers' desks for like the first few months. There was no documentation on how anything worked. So it was really fun.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Totally just thrown in. And, I had a supervisor who was on. He was a solutions architect. And then over time, we decided to build out the team a little bit more, where it was just like untenable for me to be the only person. I was working crazy hours and just like super stressed out. So I got to pick my first teammate. I did a lot of hiring. I was participating in the recruiting, and he came on first as my teammate. And then around 6 months later, I think I became the manager of the team and built out from there. So Kairos, I was there for 5 years, started as receptionist, left as the senior manager of customer support, with 6 or 7 people reporting to me. I can't remember off the top of my head. And at that point, when I left at 5 years, I was like part of the top 10 cohort in terms of seniority at Kairos. So I was one of those like legacy brains there. And I would have engineers come to me and be like, where is this config setting? I can't figure it out. And I'd be like, oh, well, it's buried in this and this and this and this. And I could read JSON files, HTML, CSS, SQL, Python. Like I had just learned to be able, I can't write, I can write SQL. I can't write any of those other languages, but I can see something in front of me and know what it's doing just from coming from that environment. And the reason I left Kairos is because I had a travel bug, decided to move to New Zealand for a year, worked for an investing company over there called Hatch. They were like a Robin Hood for New Zealanders. Went over, COVID hit. I was only on a 1-year visa. I had planned to get a longer term visa, but by the time lockdown and everything was over, it just wasn't going to work out. And I didn't really want to be in a country where I was trapped there with the border situation.
Yeah.
I couldn't come and go. If someone back home got sick, I couldn't leave. So left there, came back to the US, and a few months later did some contract work back at Kairos while I was getting settled, and then started at Tea Turtle in December 2020, which is an e-commerce store selling board games, plushies, fun t-shirts, like just really nerd culture stuff. Which I thought was nice. I like switching jobs and switching industries and learning something totally new. So I had done SaaS, customer facing investment software, and then I moved into e-commerce and physical goods and just wanted to give it a shot. So I've been there since, and I'm the senior manager of CX there. And then around 8 months ago, I also took on a BI function, managing a BI team, which is currently one analyst. So it's a very small BI team. We're in the process of building out a data warehouse right now, since we have brought in a CTO and a data consultant, a data engineer as a consultant to build out a new data warehouse for us.
That's quite the journey from the receptionist in the office.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. and my current role is a really weird mix, managing CX and being kind of in this BI function as well.
Yeah. Well, and that is one of the reasons that I'm excited to talk to you, because you're seeing both the impact that data has, but you're also very focused on data integrity and ensuring that you're getting the right kind of data. And that was a big focus for us when we put this together. So
right.
I had, not all that long ago, Craig Stoss, who we actually met at the same events where I met you at Support Driven, and we talked about how to use data and how to create a great experience using data in really good ways. But I think we put the cart before the horse a little bit when we had that conversation, because in order to use data, first I got to have data, and I got to have good data. So there are a lot of tools out there. I think currently you use Zendesk at Tea Turtle, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
Is that the primary tool that you've used in the past for support functions? Have you used other things?
Yeah, I've primarily used Zendesk, so that's what we used at Kairos the 5 years I was there. The only other CRM I have used is Intercom. That's what we used at Hatch for a year. And their reporting and tagging is, not to throw shade, but a little bit more limited compared to Zendesk. So if you want to have like a very data heavy, data centered support org, I don't think that's really the tool you would likely have in place. Or you would be supplementing it somehow with like Airtable.
So let's talk just a little bit, because sometimes I want to make sure that I don't make assumptions about what the audience knows and what they don't know. So let's talk a little bit about Zendesk and just paint us a picture of what its functionality is within a support org. What is it used for, and what data is coming in or going out of that?
For sure. So Zendesk is your ticketing system at its core. It's where your interactions with customers are coming in, and you can use it for phone calls, you can use it for emails, social media channels, all kinds of different places, WhatsApp, text, all that stuff. So you can have all of your interactions with your customers coming into the same place. And there's a few different ways that you can capture information. You can capture it, in the intake, like when the customer is sending their ticket in, you can have different forms that the customer fills out and you capture data that way. Or, you have the admin side, the agent side, where they have a little form that they fill out that supplements the actual text of the ticket that says, what's this ticket about? What product are they asking about? That kind of thing. So I've used a combination of those things in the past. When I was in like the SaaS industry, there's a little bit that was B2B. I feel like in a B2B space, you can put the burden on your customer a little bit more to provide you more information when they're submitting the ticket. In the B2C space, I try to make submitting a ticket as easy as possible. So we might ask for an order number or something like that, but we don't put a ton of burden on customers to fill out a super long form to get in touch with us or jump through a bunch of hoops before they can contact us. So most of the data capturing happens on the agent side with the forms and ticket fields that they're filling out to basically categorize the ticket and what the customer is asking for. And then Zendesk has its own reporting tool called Explore that you can use to build dashboards and reports off of that. Or depending on how big of a company you're at, if you have other teams using a tool like Tableau or something like that, you can always pull the data out of Zendesk and maybe combine it with some customer data, whatever you have from other teams and other systems, and use it in a tool like that. I've always done my reporting natively in Zendesk. That might change when we have a new data warehouse set up where I could potentially pipe in my ticket data into another system and combine it with customer data and sales data and things like that. But so far, I've done everything natively in Zendesk.
Okay. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about why this data is so important. What do you use it for? Why do I need good data?
For sure. So the main reasons, you need to know what your customers are talking about. So
Shocker. I thought
learned,
you were going to be really, really way up here and you just bring.
Yeah, no, it's pretty straightforward. You need to know what your customers are talking about and what the issues are. And you need to know it in a way that's actionable. So that's the big thing in the way I go about setting up ticket forms or in going about deciding like what I want to capture or what I don't want to capture. And that's a process I probably go through every 6 months. I look at the data we're capturing and I'm like, I haven't actioned this in the entire 6 months I've been capturing it. How would I action it? And if I can't action it, why am I asking my agents to capture it? And I will cut stuff if it's not actionable, and I'll try and reduce the number of clicks or the number of fields that I'm asking agents to fill out. I only use drop downs. I don't have any free text fields that agents have to fill out. So it's pretty quick. But the problems I'm usually trying to solve during COVID, we talked about flattening the curve when it came to the number of COVID cases. I think the same way about support tickets. In early support orgs or in sort of like immature support orgs, usually your support volume is like a 1-to-1 correlation with either your order volume, your number of customers. And if you grow 10x in your customer base, you grow 10x in your support volume. That's not a healthy support org. And that's not a healthy customer experience. So I use the data that I capture on my customers and the types of things they're talking about to flatten that curve. Where if my customer base grows 10x, maybe my support volume grows 4x or something like that. You're never going to grow and not have it impact your ticket volume, but it can't be a 1-to-1 correlation because you're just going to be throwing too much money. It's going to impact your margins. Support, it's going to be a cost center. Like it's just going to create the wrong vibe for everybody.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have a product go crazy viral or some kind of event that caused your ticket volume to soar up or your customer volume to soar up. And it's going to be like chaos, in the T-Turtle world. This was 2020 before I joined. Our reversible octopus plushie went viral. And the summer of 2020 and the months after it is referred to as the Octopocalypse, because we had this product go viral and therefore our ticket volume went crazy through the roof. And so by getting ahead of that, by understanding why your tickets are coming in and looking at ways to not just deflect tickets, like my goal is not to just throw out a crazy help center in front of people and make people find the information themselves. It's not to make submitting a ticket harder. It's actually to look at the root customer experience, whether that's your fulfillment processes, how you package things, whether or not your labels tell people how to unwrap something correctly, or anything like that. Look at those root causes of why people are reaching out and try and make the customer experience better so that they don't have to contact you.
Yeah.
So that's really how I use my data, and where my focus goes is not like I need to deflect tickets so that my team is not a cost center. It's that I need to make the customer experience better so that they simply don't need us.
That is the sign of a great customer support org, in my opinion, is that it's informing the other parts of the business so that we can make changes to make that customer experience better. It's not about just solving a problem right now. It's about solving the problem so it doesn't ever happen to begin with going forward. And it sounds like that's something that you're very focused on doing it at Tea Turtle today.
For sure. And it's about, not even, so in addition to we had a problem, how do we prevent it again? I think something that support orgs struggle with is they have things that are just huge thorns in their side. They have this product has this feature that's buggy, it doesn't work. We get tickets about it all the time because this dropdown doesn't load right, or the steps they have to go through is confusing. And they will anecdotally go to the product team and say, hey, this feature is really bothering our customers, or one particular customer will be viciously angry about it, and they'll send that one ticket over the product manager and be like, look at how upset. They'll use anecdotal, or they'll say this is a big problem, but they won't actually measure it. They won't actually say this is how many tickets we get in a month. The average handle time on those tickets is 6 minutes. That correlates to X hundreds or thousands of dollars a month in agent time. The engineering cost to fix this, can you give me that? Okay, it's 4 hours, that costs this. We will have positive ROI if we fix this issue in 3 weeks. That's the data-driven approach to going to a product team and saying, fix this, this is why. And that's usually a lot easier than just anecdotal blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's way easier to get buy-in to go forward, right? Not only is this not a problem, but it's going to affect the bottom line in a positive way.
For sure. Everyone, and you have to recognize that anyone that you're asking for something, like they have their job to do, and they have to prioritize. Like, I said this in my talk at Support Driven when I was talking about telling data-driven stories. You should expect pushback anytime you ask for something, because that person you're asking for something has to prioritize their work. And if you don't give them data to effectively prioritize what you're asking for, then it's just going to go to the bottom of the list. If it's just anecdotal, oh, this upsets customers, we should really fix it, but they can't measure that impact, but they have something that the product manager has scoped out. Maybe a customer has requested it in their contract. Maybe it's going to add 200 new users per month. Other things that are on your roadmap are probably spec'd out in a different way that have a monetary value attached to it. And so if you can't speak that same language, if you can't give them that same information, they can't effectively prioritize it. So it's just going to go to the bottom every time as like a nice to have. And nice to haves don't get worked on.
No, they don't. So what happens when you go into an organization that already has bad data? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's what I encountered at Tea Turtle. So the ticket forms that the team used when I first joined had one field, and it was called about, and it had a drop down of 87 values in it. And in those 87 values, there was everything from products, plushie, t-shirt, game. There was lost order international, exchange request RMA, like just duplication. It was really hard to decipher. You'd have two that were very similar and there'd be like a couple letters different and be like, is this actually meaningfully different? Is this just a duplicate? And when you have a catch-all field like that, the data is completely meaningless, because a ticket is not usually about one thing. Or there's usually not only one thing you want to capture. If someone reaches out about a torn t-shirt, you want to capture that it's a quality control issue. You had a t-shirt that was torn. You want to capture that it was a t-shirt. You want to capture whether you refunded or replaced it. There's usually multiple things that you want to capture in every interaction. And so one field's just not going to do it. So the data was completely useless because there was no way to draw trends, because one person would label someone reaching out about a plushie that was on pre-order as a pre-order question. Another person would label it as a plushie question. It was just complete chaos. And so I just totally ripped and replaced. And I joined in December 2020. I was not in the middle of holiday season at an e-commerce company that sells nerdy, highly giftable stuff, going to rip and replace while the team was really, really busy. So I just observed all through December, read a bunch of tickets, looked to see what types of things people were reaching out about. And then in the background was building out these new forms, these new ticket fields. And I went through that list of 87 abouts and tried to dedupe and map it to meaningful values. These are products, these are issue types, these are, subcategories, all that kind of stuff. And then I put my proposed new structure in front of the team, asked what I was missing. And then we went live with the new forms in mid-January, kind of tested and iterated on them for a couple weeks. And then I consider February 1st the first day of good data at T-Turtle. February 1st, 2021.
Day zero.
That's day zero, essentially. And there was no real concerns because the existing data was useless. It's not like anyone depended on it for anything. You couldn't make any reliable conclusions from it. You couldn't really use it for anything. So just getting rid of it was the best thing to do. And I think if you come into an org that has bad data, obviously if there are people using it, you have to figure out what they're using it for and make sure that you can replace it effectively. And with Zendesk, if you stop using a field or stop using a form, you don't have to hard delete that data. You just retire that form, don't put those fields on your new one, and the old data is still there, and you could pull it out into Excel or into a Tableau or into another system and map it into your new fields if you really needed some kind of continuity. But if the data was that bad in the first place, you probably aren't using it anyway.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that people fail to recognize is more is not always better.
For sure.
I need quality data with context, to your point, that's actionable. Don't just give me everything. Like, I don't need every word, every article, every exclamation point. I just need to understand how I need to move forward, and good data can help me with that.
For sure.
So what kinds of problems have you solved with, right? I mean, so we're now 2 years on, right? I mean, since your day zero. In fact, as we're recording this, we're like 2 years and 2 days on as we're recording this since your year zero.
Since the good data, yeah.
Yeah. So what?
It's true.
Now that you've had good data for a couple of years, what kinds of things has that allowed you to accomplish? I know you talked about a couple of things along the way, but how have you been able to show ROI on that going forward?
For sure. So the first thing I'll point out is that the team today is the same exact size as it was when I joined. in terms of the number of full-time folks on the team, even though our sales volume is around 30 to 40% higher.
Wow.
So the curve has been flattened significantly.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so that's a huge win. And there's, so many website improvements that we've made. Some quick ones I can call out are some of it is super simple. When you placed an order on our website, you got a thank you page that didn't have any information on your order. It didn't give you your order number. It didn't show any kind of order confirmation page with your address, stuff like that. And some of the really common issues that we would get were issues with addresses where someone forgot their apartment number, or they forgot to, they put their old address instead of their new one. And part of the issue is once you submitted your order, you never saw your address again until the package didn't show up,
Yeah.
And so even just putting someone's address in front of them again on the order confirmation page and adding an edit order button that says, double check your address, you have 2 hours to change it, huge reduction of our, packages lost, requests to edit orders. Our fulfillment system works really fast. And so the window in which we had time to edit an address if someone reached out was really small. So those are really painful tickets for us because normally the order had already shipped or was in the fulfillment process by the time a customer reached out. Another big one, and this is pretty standard for e-commerce businesses, are where's my order tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And I have done a little research. I think, 25-30% of your queue being where's my order is pretty normal in e-commerce. Tracking packages is apparently super, super hard. And it was around 35% at T-Turtle when I joined. And so changing the way our emails look when we send out tracking, we would have random issues in our system where tracking wasn't generated correctly and emailed out. And we focused some IT resources on it was one of those things where there are a lot of jobs in the SaaS world where if one line fails, the whole job fails. I think we've all run into an issue like that at some point where it's very fragile. That's how this process was set up. If uploading one tracking number failed, the whole upload failed. And so you just need to have that where it doesn't do that and it reattempts, or, that line fails, but the other lines update. And that was something that just happened all the time when I first started. And then you'd have 20,000 people who didn't get their tracking for a week because the whole process was failing because of one bad line. So looking at issues like that. And then we also implemented a partner who does sort of an enhanced tracking experience. They offer maps that show where your package is on a map. Just seeing a physical map and a dot on it reduces people's likelihood of reaching out because it assures them that it exists versus a normal carrier tracking page that's just text on a page. They're like, no, it's lost. But there's something about a map that psychologically affirms to them that the package is not lost somehow because it's in this place.
There.
It's right there. Yeah. And so we implemented this partner that offers these maps on tracking. They also offer a claims process for lost packages and stuff like that. That's very, very easy. It's kind of like click, 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 very similar to, replacing a package on Amazon. And we've seen around a 30% reduction in our where's my order tickets since going live with them in April. So it's really about just looking at your data, looking at what those big contributors are, your cost drivers, as some would say. And so where's my volume coming from? And then looking for easy ways to knock it out. Another really easy one was we, people enter their card numbers wrong, their zip codes, billing details. The error messages that we showed on our website were just the straight error messages that came through the payment processor. So they were like code gibberish, ABS error 1287, something like that. absolutely meaningless to a customer unless they work in payment processing.
Right.
And so we would get a ticket every time someone got that error nearly, or you just lose that customer. And so we pulled a report from our payment processor of the 10 most common error messages, and then we mapped them to customer friendly language. It's like, hey, it looks like you entered your security code wrong. Please re-enter it and submit again. Hey, it looks like your address doesn't match what your bank has on file. Please double check it and submit again. And we saw higher success rates on orders being submitted, and we saw fewer tickets about payment processing errors. So it's really just about mapping the tickets that are coming in to the actual point in the customer journey where they're hitting that issue, and then looking at that yourself and saying, well, what can we make better? So it involves using your own website. Hypercritical, you have to use your own website or your own app, whatever it is, and know it super well so that you can say, this is the issue they're running into. This is where that lives in their journey through our tool, our site, whatever. And then you have to play with that and be a customer in it and figure out how to make it better.
Yeah, you point to something that's really critical too, that I think sometimes gets left out of the picture is I can't just rely on the data. I do have to like be the customer and understand from a customer experience standpoint, like what is it really like for them? And I think that really successful companies are focused on what it's really like to be a customer. And maybe there are other companies out there that really just don't put a lot of focus on that. I do wonder, and I know you've only been in e-commerce for a couple of years now, right? So you're in a different industry, but I wonder how much what Amazon does in their e-commerce business informs both kind of your roadmap and customer attitudes or customer expectations and when they deal with T-Turtle.
For sure. I would say the big thing is customer expectations, because Amazon has sort of an experience that 99% of people, I don't know what the actual percentage would be, but the vast majority of people have shopped on Amazon at least once, And so customer expectation, and there are a lot of people out there who almost exclusively shop on Amazon, And so part of it is we offer a lot of our products on Amazon, especially our plushies. So we're present there. That's a strategic choice you have to make on whether you want to offer your stuff there. We do, and we're thrilled to. But I think the thing that Amazon does super well is that it's so easy. And that's really where I try to focus. There's like two competing camps in customer experience. There's like the let's wow every customer and go over the top, hyper personalized, like, we want them to open their box and confetti pops out, like, and that strategy works in some industries with some customer bases. But if like the confetti shoots out of that package a month after they place the order, and the order was on back order for 2 weeks when it showed as in stock when they placed the order, and when they were placing the order, you like ran their card twice and billed them twice, and they had to reach out and say, hey, there's this billing error. Like, if it was a super shitty experience to get that confetti filled box, they're not coming back just because it's confetti. And Amazon doesn't do any confetti. There is no warm and fuzzy feeling that you get when you shop from Amazon. If anything, for a lot of Americans, it's kind of icky. I know me personally, like I've considered canceling my Amazon subscription every year for the month up to my renewal date. And then I am like, man, well, it's super easy for this, it's super easy for this, and I go through this whole existential crisis every December before my Prime account renews, and I end up keeping it every December because it's just so dang easy. And so even though there are plenty of consumers who would probably happily shop otherwhere if they could get that similar ease and similar experience. Amazon is unique in how easy it is and how you can find anything there. And so they are very successful based on ease alone. And there's no wow factor. There's no handwritten notes or confetti or a box of chocolates after your first order or any of that. It's just really easy. So I try to focus, especially in a support org that is maybe on the immature side where there's a lot of work to do, or in a website that's on the immature side. Focus on ease first. Focus on just like that core customer journey where they come in, they get set up easily, they place their order easily, whatever that is. You know, billing is easy, shipping is easy. Like, focus on those table stakes. And then once you have like a really core customer experience, like at T-Turtle right now, we have a really core, good customer support service. We have great CSAT scores, great NPS scores, all that kind of stuff. Now we're starting to think, well, what can we do that's kind of special? What can we do that's kind of different? There's still work that needs to be done on maybe our website and things like that we're looking into. But once you get that core done, you can start to be creative. So I think Amazon is certainly a reference point, because when you have something that's successful, you have to think about why, you know, and then you definitely have customer expectations around how fast something is going to ship, or the fact that they have to pay for shipping at all. We currently do not offer free shipping. We definitely know that there's a lot of people that love that. We get a lot of, man, if you just offered free shipping at this price mark, you know, that would be awesome. So always stuff that we're thinking about. But yeah, customer expectations are really high because Amazon is super easy. It's click, click, click. It gets to you in 2 days. I mean, it's hard to compete with that level of scale when you're a company that's like a 10,000th of the size.
Yeah. It seems to me just reduce the friction in the process. Start there.
For sure.
And then we can worry about, when I get that good experience, do we want to add some bells and whistles? But you're right. There are a lot of things that Amazon does that's just easy. You know, the cost of shipping is certainly one of those. And there are the things that they don't do well that sometimes we overlook. For instance, if you're a collector and you want good packaging intact, be careful if you order something big on Amazon that you want the box to be nice and pristine, because they'll just slap a label right on the outside of the box and ship it like that if you don't tell them differently. So those are the kinds of little things that maybe they don't do all that well, but they do enough to make it easy that it's Brokeback Mountain, man. I can't quit you. Like,
I can't exactly. No, and it is. I mean, I know plenty of people like myself who are like, man, I want to cancel my Amazon account, and then December 28th just comes and goes every year. That's I know the date that my Amazon Prime renews because I have this crisis it's right around Christmas, and I'm like, okay, my Christmas shopping's done. I renew right after Christmas. I could let it go. Like, and then
it could be a New Year's resolution for you, and you just can't pull the trigger.
It just sails by every year. I've got a Prime TV. That's part of it. I have a Fire TV, and I'm like, well, then what does that? How does that work with my TV? You know, they're sticky like that. So then I'm like, well, I got to buy a new TV if I.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. They've definitely figured out how to get their tentacles into our lives and make it hard to let go. So we've talked a lot about data. I want to talk about something totally different, off base, because it's something that's a little close to my heart. But I know that you are a big sister. Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of why you decided to do that and what that involves?
Yeah, so I've been a big sister through Big Brothers Big Sister for about a year. I'm about to hit my 1-year anniversary. And it's something I've been interested in for a long time, but I moved around a lot. Whether it was in Boston, I was there for almost 7 years, but I lived in like 5 different apartments. That's kind of city life for you.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where, and I was moving into drastically different neighborhoods. I'm someone who likes new experiences, hence my weird career bouncing from industry to industry. I'm like that with where I live too, so even though I was staying in the Boston area, I would go from, a neighborhood that was very this to a neighborhood that was very that, and far from each other. And I didn't know when I was in Boston how long I was going to be there. Then I was in New Zealand. And then when I moved back to St. Louis, I bought a house. And that was like I'm staying here for at least 5 years in my head. That's what buying a house meant. And I felt like I was stable enough and not going to jump ship that I could become a big sister. And a big part of it is I don't plan to have children, but and the only thing that's ever drawn me to having children is helping someone navigate all the shit that you could have had help with when you were a kid. I think that's the main thing that draws people to wanting to have kids is they think about their own childhood and they think about all the stuff that they wish their parents or their grandparents or their support system would have given them. And they think, I'm going to do it better. I'm going to make that better for my kids. And I understand that feeling, but I don't want kids. But I like the idea of helping someone. I had this drive to be a teacher for a really long time. So I decided to be a big sister, and I have a match, Vanessa. She's great. She's in high school. And it's been super fun. I like the idea of getting matched with an older kid just because I'm not super goofy, probably because I had a pretty crazy childhood of my own and I aged very quickly. So that little inner child for me is like, she's very bookish and more mature. My inner child is not super fun and goofy. She's like sitting in a corner at Christmas reading and hoping no one notices her. And so I didn't want to get matched with like a 6-year-old who was like crazy and bouncing off walls all the time, because I'd be like, could we just like simmer down and maybe have a nice chat?
Right. Sit down, have some tea, like.
Yeah, so I got matched with a teenager, and that's great. She's very artsy and nerdy. And it's just fun. I see her, a couple times a month, and we spend a few hours together. The last time we went out, there's a little ice sculpture festival in St. Louis that we walked around, and there's a glass blowing studio in the neighborhood. So we went and watched them blow glass for a while, walked around the shop. It's just spending time together, being a consistent resource for someone. Usually the people, the kids who are in Big Brothers, Big Sisters, a lot of them come from single parent households, or just like maybe they have a lot of siblings and they have to share attention from their parents across, a lot of brothers and sisters, or there's been, step parents in and out. There's different sorts of scenarios that these kids come from. And it's just someone for them to have a steady point of contact that they can talk to about whatever. And it's really great. I really enjoy my time with her, and it's a way to like kind of use some of those maternal instincts, outside of like having 3 extremely spoiled pets. So yeah, I really enjoy it. I would recommend it, for anyone who, and I think I was a 1st generation college student. I grew up, I spent my middle school and high school years living in a trailer park in south of St. Louis. And even of my cousins and stuff like that, it was pretty unusual to go to college. Education wasn't super important. Moving away from home is like unheard of. It's just, I was kind of a black sheep. And I think, when you grow up in certain environments, it might be rural Missouri, it might be inner city. It's hard to break out of cycles, no matter what that cycle is. And so if I can be someone who has broken out of that cycle and can show someone else that it's possible, Like that's huge to me. And I think that's why I wanted to work with kids and be a teacher. And now I'm not doing that. So I can kind of do that through Big Brother, Big Sister.
I absolutely love that. As a one-time little brother for like 10 years, I really appreciate the people out there willing to be that resource and role model and just kind of friend for kids who need that. And
For sure.
it can be really hard for them to find that in their normal lives. And so you giving that time, I know, will be very remembered by Vanessa, probably her entire life. You will have no idea the impact that you're making. So good on you.
Aw. Thank you.
Aw.
Oh.
See, I can say that and then tell you that tiger on your shirt is just bothering me so much. Like I want to yell Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
M-I-Z.
Jaclyn, it has been so great having you on the show, taking a deep dive into data, why it's important, and how you can use it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. It's been fun. Thanks for inviting me, Rob.
Yeah, you bet. If someone wanted to learn more about you and or T-Turtle, how could they do that?
If they wanted to connect with me, the best place is to probably find me on LinkedIn, or if you're a support-driven member listening in, I check that Slack often. LinkedIn's probably the best though, to be honest. Jaclyn Herr, Herr. T-Turtle, our website, if you're into our games. So T-Turtle has a sister company, Unstable Games. And we design our own board games and they're super fun. And we've got a new one coming out very soon that everyone's super excited about called Casting Shadows. So Unstable Games, check it out. There's a Discord, all that fun stuff. But yeah, happy to connect with whoever.
Sweet. Well, we'll make sure all that information is in the liner notes so people can check it out. Once again, thanks, Jaclyn, for coming on the show.
Thanks, Rob. Have a good one.
Next in Queue is brought to you by Happy To and is produced by me, Rob Dwyer. If you enjoy this podcast, please by all means subscribe and or rate this podcast in iTunes or your favorite podcast app. But more importantly, please tell just one person about this podcast. Word of mouth is the best way for people to discover new content. As always, thanks for listening.